I stood in Halstead Consulting's glass-walled conference room, my palms sweaty, presenting my first project. My slides were sharp, my numbers solid, but my voice shook. Halfway through, Ioni Bitta, my team lead, leaned back, smirking. "Kid, you'll never make it here. You're better off serving coffee than giving presentations." The room exploded in laughter. My face burned, notes trembling in my hands. I forced a nod, swallowing the sting. Their chuckles echoed as I sat down, but something inside me hardened. I wasn't just humiliated, I was done being their punching bag. That moment seared into me, a vow forming. I will prove you wrong. I glanced at Ioni, his smug grin fueling my resolve. I'd show him, not with words, but with results. The meeting ended, and I walked back to my cubicle, my heart pounding. I didn't know how, but I knew I'd turn this around. Every snicker from my colleagues felt like a challenge. I sat at my desk, staring at my screen, already planning my next move. Ioni thought he'd broken me. He had no idea he'd just lit a fire. Hashtag if you're watching this, subscribe, like, and let me know where you're watching from. That night, I sat in my dim apartment, the city's hum outside my window. My laptop glowed with a half-written resignation letter. Quitting felt like the easy way out, but the eviction notice on my counter glared back. Rent was due, and failure wasn't an option. My pride stung from Ioni's words, my chest tight with shame. But something shifted, a spark of defiance. I deleted the letter. I wouldn't let Ioni win. Not like this. I opened my job search tab instead, scrolling through listings. Most were dead ends, but one caught my eye, Vertex Innovations, a startup nobody believed in. The reviews called it a sinking ship, but I saw a chance. A risky one, sure, but staying at Halstead meant more of Ioni's mockery. I couldn't keep shrinking under his shadow. I started typing an application, my fingers steady despite the doubt creeping in. What if Vertex was a mistake? What if I failed again? I pushed the thoughts aside. This wasn't about safety, it was about proving I was more than Ioni's punchline. I hit send, my heart racing. Tomorrow I'd face Halstead again, but tonight I chose to fight. The next week, whispers about my Vertex application spread through Halstead. In the cafeteria, Ioni cornered me, his tray clattering as he leaned in. "Jumping to a sinking ship? Perfect for you, kid." His cronies chuckled, their eyes glinting with mockery. I gripped my lunch tray, forcing a calm I didn't feel. The insult burned, but I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. I just nodded and walked away, their laughter trailing me. Back at my desk, I checked my email. Vertex had replied. An interview. My stomach flipped. This was real. Halstead's fluorescent lights felt suffocating, Ioni's voice still echoing in my head. I thought about my eviction notice, my dwindling bank account. Vertex was a gamble, but staying here meant letting Ioni define me. I prepped for the interview that night, practicing answers in my cracked bathroom mirror. My reflection looked tired but determined. Ioni's words replayed, "You'll never make it." I clenched my jaw. He didn't know me. He didn't know what I could do. I'd show him, not with arguments, but by succeeding where he thought I'd fail. The interview was tomorrow. I was ready to leap. That night, walking home under the city's neon glow, I replayed her praise. For the first time, I felt respect, not pity or mockery. Vertex was still shaky, but we were alive because of me. I wasn't just surviving. I was proving I belonged. Ioni's voice faded a little more, replaced by the quiet confidence growing inside. I passed a newsstand, the headline about our deal catching my eye. I smiled, not because of the article, but because I'd done what Ioni said I couldn't. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about me, my team, and the future we were building from nothing. I kept walking, ready for whatever came next. At an industry mixer, the air buzzed with suits and small talk. I was there for Vertex, shaking hands, pitching our vision. Across the room, Ioni spotted me. He sauntered over, drink in hand, his old smirk back. "Still playing house with your toy company?" he asked, loud enough for others to hear. A few heads turned. I met his gaze, my face calm. I didn't flinch, didn't bite. I just smiled. The silence hung heavy, and Ioniai's grin faltered. He expected me to crumble, to fire back, but my quiet confidence threw him off. I turned back to my conversation, leaving him standing there, his jab unanswered. Later, I heard him laugh too loudly at someone else's joke, trying to regain his footing. But I'd seen it, the crack in his armor. My success wasn't loud, but it was real. Vertex was gaining ground, and I was part of it. Ioniai's words couldn't touch me anymore. I sipped my drink, shook another hand, and kept building. He'd mocked me, but I was already out of his reach. Trouble hit Vertex like a storm. Projects started failing, deadlines missed, data leaks exposed. Clients got jumpy, and rumors pointed to sabotage. I had no proof, but my gut screamed Halstead. Ioniai's smug face flashed in my mind. He'd always played dirty, spreading lies to keep his edge. I stayed late, combing through logs, looking for clues. Nothing solid, just whispers of stolen files. The team was rattled, but I kept them focused. "We don't point fingers," I said. "We fix this." Deep down, I knew Ioniai's type, arrogant enough to think he could crush us. I wouldn't let him. Instead of chasing ghosts, I doubled down on work. I tightened security, rallied the team, and prepped for our next pitch. If Halstead was behind this, they'd expect us to panic. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Every late night, every fixed bug, was a step toward proving them wrong. I thought he could break me again. But this time, I wasn't the nervous kid in the conference room. I was ready to fight back. Not with accusations, but with results. I didn't confront Halstead. Instead, I turned their sabotage into our advantage. The leaked ideas? I reworked them better and faster, and pitched them to new clients. I spent nights studying competitors, finding gaps Halstead missed. Vertex landed 2 exclusive deals, snatching clients right from Halstead's grasp. It was a gamble. Long hours, high stakes, but it paid off. Halstead's phones started ringing with angry clients, their contracts drying up. Ioniai's name came up in industry chatter, his reputation taking hits. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. My focus was Vertex, not revenge. But I couldn't lie, the thought of Ioniai squirming felt good. Our office buzzed with new energy, the team stronger than ever. Eleanor gave me a nod at our next meeting. "You turned a disaster into a win," she said. I shrugged, but inside, I felt unstoppable. Ioniai thought he could bury us. Instead, we were rising, and Halstead was crumbling. I kept my eyes on the next deal, knowing every success was a quiet slap to his ego. This wasn't over, but I was already ahead. At Halstead, Ioniai's world was cracking. The board called him in, their faces stone cold. Lost clients, bad press, his arrogance had cost them millions. "You're off the lead role," they said. "You're on low-level projects now." Ioniai's jaw tightened, his usual swagger gone. He left the boardroom, the sting of humiliation new and sharp. For the first time, he felt what I'd felt that day in the conference room. Back at Vertex, I heard the news through industry gossip. I didn't smile, didn't celebrate. I was too busy with our next project. But I couldn't deny the irony. Ioniai, who'd mocked me as a failure, was now the one demoted. His kingdom was shrinking, and he had no one to blame but himself. I thought back to his cafeteria taunts, his smug laughter. Now he was the one scrambling. Vertex was climbing, our name in every trade journal. I focused on my work, but the thought lingered. Ioniai's fall wasn't my doing. It was his, and I was just getting started. One morning, Vertex's HR slid a resume across my desk. I glanced at the name, Ioniai Bitta. My breath caught. The man who'd humiliated me, who'd said I'd never succeed, was applying to my company. For a moment, I just stared, the irony sinking in. Ioniai, the untouchable team lead, was now begging for a job under me. I flipped through his resume. Polished, full of buzzwords, but I knew the truth. He wasn't here because he believed in Vertex. He was here because Halstead had chewed him up and spit him out. My first instinct was to shred it, but I stopped. This wasn't about revenge. Not yet. I leaned back, picturing his smirk in that conference room. Now he needed me. The power had shifted, and I hadn't even tried. I told HR to set up an interview. Not because I wanted him here, but because I wanted to see his face when he realized who was in charge. I folded the resume, my hands steady. I was about to learn what it felt like to be on the other side. The interview day arrived. I walked into Vertex's conference room, his suit crisp, his grin confident. He thought he was meeting HR. Then he saw me at the head of the table. His smirk vanished, his shoulders tensing. "Take a seat, I said, my voice cool. "Let's hear what you bring to the table." His eyes darted, searching for an escape, but he sat. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch. He cleared his throat, launching into a pitch about his leadership experience. I listened, my face blank. I remembered every jab, every laugh he'd aimed at me. Now he was sweating, his words stumbling. He wasn't the king anymore. I was. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. When he finished, I nodded slowly, not giving him an inch. "We'll review your application," I said. His jaw twitched, but he forced a smile. As he left, I saw the truth in his eyes. He knew he'd lost. I stayed calm, but inside, I felt the weight of that moment. I wasn't just interviewing. He was facing his past, and I held the pen. I's pitch was desperate, all buzzwords and bluster. I listened, expressionless, as he tried to sell himself. When he finished, I slid an offer across the table. Break room attendant, minimum wage, cleaning coffee pots and stocking snacks. His jaw tightened, his eyes flashing with anger. For a moment I thought he'd walk out, but he didn't. Broke and out of options, he signed the contract, his hand shaking. I kept my face neutral, but inside, I felt a quiet thrill. Not because I'd won, but because I's pride was crumbling. He'd mocked me as a coffee boy, and now that was his job. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't need to. The offer spoke for itself. As he left, head down, I leaned back in my chair. This wasn't about cruelty. It was about consequences. I had built his career on belittling others. Now he'd live with the result. I filed the contract and got back to work. Vertex was growing, and I had bigger things to focus on than I's bruised ego. But I couldn't deny it. This felt right. I's first day as break room attendant was brutal. He scrubbed counters, refilled sugar packets, and hauled trash bags, his tie replaced by an apron. Employees whispered as he passed. Wasn't he a big shot at Halstead? I walked by, checking on a project, and gave him a polite nod. He avoided my eyes, his face red. The silence was louder than any insult I could have thrown. I didn't gloat or linger. I had work to do, but the office buzzed with gossip. Once the guy who made me a punchline, was now the one being laughed at. His old swagger was gone, replaced by hunched shoulders and quick, embarrassed glances. I remembered his cafeteria taunts, how he'd made me feel small. Now the tables had turned, and I hadn't lifted a finger. The team respected me not because I tore I down, but because I'd built something real. Vertex was thriving, and I was leading it. I's humiliation wasn't my goal. It was just the natural result of his own choices. I kept walking, focused on the next deadline. I treated I like any other staffer. Fair, professional, no special attention. I didn't need to rub it in. The situation spoke for itself. The power dynamic had flipped. Once, he'd stood over me, laughing as I fumbled. Now, he wiped down tables while I led meetings. The team noticed, but I kept things quiet. No gloating, no petty jabs. My restraint wasn't weakness, it was strength. I's fall wasn't my doing. It was his. Every time I passed the break room, I saw him, head down, avoiding gazes. The guy who'd called me a failure was now living one. But I didn't revel in it. My focus was Vertex, new clients, bigger projects. Still, the irony wasn't lost on me. I had tried to break me, but I'd outgrown him. The office hummed with my leadership, not his mockery. I gave him his tasks, checked his work, and moved on. Revenge wasn't in humiliating him. It was in proving I was better. Every success, every deal, was a quiet reminder. I'd already won. Ioniai's bitterness grew like a weed. He muttered insults while scrubbing coffee pots, loud enough for staff to hear. "This place is a joke," he'd grumble, or, "I'm better than this." Employees smirked, their whispers trailing him. His pride was rotting, and he couldn't hide it. Once, he'd been the guy everyone feared at Halstead. Now he was the break room guy mocked behind his back. I overheard the chatter but stayed out of it. My job wasn't to manage his ego, it was to lead Vertex. Still, I saw the toll it took. His hands shook when he refilled the coffee machine, his eyes darting like he expected another jab. I remembered how his laughter had cut me, but I didn't return it. I gave him his schedule, checked his work, and kept moving. The team respected me for it, not for tearing him down but for staying above it. Ioniai's resentment was his own cage. He'd built it, not me. Every day, I focused on Vertex's growth, knowing his downfall was just a shadow of my rise. Word spread fast. Industry blogs buzzed. Ioniai Bitta, Halstead star, now stocks snacks at Vertex. My name came up too, the kid who'd turned a failing startup into a contender. I didn't seek the spotlight, but it found me. At networking events, people shook my hand, saying, "You're the guy who outplayed Halstead." I just smiled, keeping it humble. Ioniai's fall was a story now, a cautionary tale about arrogance. Vertex's rise, my rise, was the real headline. Clients called, drawn by our reputation for grit and results. I led pitches, closed deals, and built a team that trusted me. Ioniai's name faded, replaced by mine. I didn't need to brag, the numbers spoke. Vertex's revenue doubled, and our name was everywhere. I thought back to that conference room, Ioniai's smirk, his cruel words. Now he was a footnote and I was the story. Not because I'd crushed him, but because I'd built something better. The industry knew it, and so did I. Every handshake, every contract was proof I'd made it. I called Ioniai into my office one day. He shuffled in, eyes down, apron still on. "You can keep this role," I said, "or try for something else in another department. But you'll have to earn it with respect." His face twisted, a sneer breaking through. "I'll never take orders from you," he spat. I nodded, unfazed. His arrogance hadn't changed, even after everything. I sent him back to the break room, my voice calm. I'd given him a chance, not because he deserved it, but because I wasn't him. I wouldn't mock or belittle, but I wouldn't coddle either. Ioniai's pride was his problem, not mine. As he left, I felt no anger, just clarity. I'd offered a path, and he'd refused it. That was his choice. I turned back to my work, emails piling up from new clients. Vertex was growing, and I was leading it. Ioniai could stay bitter, trapped in his own resentment. I had a company to run, a team to build. His refusal didn't slow me down. It just proved I'd already outgrown him. Ioniai unraveled. He was caught napping in the supply closet, pocketing snacks, snapping at staff who asked for coffee refills. His resentment boiled over, poisoning the air. Employees avoided him, their whispers turning to open laughter. He wasn't the feared leader anymore. He was the guy who couldn't handle the break room. I got reports daily. Ioniai slacking, Ioniai complaining, Ioniai glaring at anyone who spoke to him. His pride was eating him alive. I stayed professional, addressing issues as they came, but I didn't intervene. He'd made his bed. I remembered his cafeteria taunts, how he'd made me feel worthless. Now, he was living that same shame, and I didn't have to lift a finger. My focus was Vertex, new projects, bigger goals. Ioniai's spiral was background noise. I gave him warnings, followed protocol, but I knew where this was headed. He wasn't just failing at his job, he was failing himself. Every snide comment, every stolen snack, dug his hole deeper. I kept leading, building, winning. Ioniai's collapse wasn't my Ioniai. It was just the end of his story. Security escorted Ioniai out one afternoon. He'd snapped at a senior manager, thrown a coffee pot against the wall. I watched from my office window as he shuffled across the parking lot, head down, carrying a box of his things. I remembered his voice in that conference room. "You'll never make it here." Now, he was the one who'd failed. The moment felt heavy, not triumphant. I'd wanted to prove him wrong, and I had, but watching him leave wasn't the win I'd imagined. It was closure. I turned back to my desk, emails waiting, a new client pitch due tomorrow. Vertex was thriving because of my work, my team's work. Ioniai's exit didn't change that. I thought about that first day, my trembling hands, his laughter. I'd outlasted him not by fighting dirty, but by being better. The office buzzed outside my door, the team moving forward. I took a deep breath, letting the past go. Ioniai was gone, and I was here, leading a company that believed in me. That was enough. Late that night, I sat alone in my office, the city lights flickering outside. The silence was heavy. Ioniai's fall replayed in my mind. His smirk, his desperation, his final walkout. I wondered if I could have shown more mercy, maybe pushed harder to help him change. But I'd given him a chance, and he'd thrown it away. My restraint wasn't weakness, it was my strength. I hadn't stooped to his level, hadn't mocked or belittled. I'd let his choices bury him. Still, revenge tasted bittersweet. It wasn't about gloating. It was about proving I was more than his words. I looked at the Vertex logo on my desk, a reminder of what I'd built. The kid who'd trembled in that conference room was gone. In his place was a leader, steady and focused. I closed my laptop, the weight of the day lifting. Ioniai's story was over, but mine was just beginning. I'd won not by destroying him, but by outgrowing him. I turned off the light and left, ready for tomorrow's challenges. Years passed and Vertex soared. I climbed the ranks, becoming CEO. The startup everyone called doomed was now an industry leader, our name in every major trade journal. Clients sought us out, drawn by our reputation for grit and innovation. I led with respect, building a team that trusted me. At networking events, people told my story. The kid who turned humiliation into triumph. I didn't dwell on Ioniai, he was a distant memory. Vertex's revenue tripled, our projects shaping the industry. My office overlooked the city, a far cry from my old apartment with its eviction notice. I thought back to that first day at Halstead, Ioniai's laughter cutting through me. I proved him wrong, not with anger, but with results. My team, people I'd mentored, trusted, pushed us forward. I wasn't just a leader. I was someone who'd built something lasting. The industry knew my name, not for revenge, but for what I'd created. Every deal, every handshake was a reminder. I'd made it, not because of Ioniai's cruelty, but in spite of it. One evening, I stopped at a gas station, tired from a long day. Behind the counter, stocking shelves, was Ioniai. His hair was grayer, his posture small. He didn't see me at first, his eyes fixed on the floor. The man who'd once loomed over me was now just a clerk, his old swagger gone. I grabbed a bottle of water, watching him fumble with a box. Our eyes met, and his widened recognition hitting like a shock. He froze, his hands shaking. I didn't smile or glare, just nodded, like he was any other worker. The silence was heavy, his shame palpable. I paid for the water, my voice steady. He rang me up, avoiding my gaze. I remembered his words, "You'll never make it." They felt hollow now, like a bad joke. I walked toward the door, the weight of that moment settling in. Ioniai was a shadow of himself, and I was everything he'd said I couldn't be. I didn't need to say it. He knew. The truth was louder than any words. I stood at the counter, water in hand. Ioniai's hands trembled as he scanned it. His eyes glued to the register. I could have walked away, let the moment pass. But something in me needed to close the loop. "Remember when you said I'd never make it?" I said, my voice calm. "You were wrong." His head snapped up, his face pale. He swallowed hard, lips parting, but no words came. I held his gaze steady, not cruel. The air felt thick, the hum of the gas station fading. Ioniai nodded, barely, his eyes dropping back to the counter. I took my change and walked out, the bell above the door jingling. Outside, the night was cool, the city alive. I didn't feel triumph, just clarity. Ioniai's words had once cut me deep, but they didn't define me. My work, my team, my life, they did. I got in my car, the water bottle cold in my hand. The past was done. I said what I needed to. Now I was driving toward the future. I walked into the night, head high. Vertex was thriving, my team was strong, and I'd built something real. The revenge wasn't in humiliating Ioni, it was in outlasting him, outgrowing him. Every deal we closed, every project we launched, proved him wrong. I didn't need to crush him. I just needed to be better. And I was. The industry told my story now, not his. At home, my wife hugged me, sensing the weight of the day. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, smiling. Better than okay. I thought about that kid in the conference room, trembling under Ioni's laughter. He was gone, replaced by someone who led with dignity. The best revenge wasn't cruelty. It was becoming everything Ioni said I couldn't be. I looked out at the city, its lights bright against the dark. Vertex was my legacy, built on hard work and respect. Ioni was a footnote, a lesson in what not to be. I turned away from the window, ready for tomorrow. My story wasn't over, it was just getting started. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the playlist now.